This is a special presentation from UFC Fight Pass. Step into our world at UFCFightPass.com.
Well, it is the greatest time to ever be a combat sports fan. And if you need proof, well, don't worry. You're here for extra rounds. And we are here in the Big Apple. It is going down in New York City. It is the biggest fight in UFC heavyweight history. We're going to break it down in extra rounds. Powered by DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours, but tomorrow night in MSG, the greatest fighter of all time in my book, Jon Jones, takes on the greatest statistical heavyweight to ever play the game, Stipe Miocic. And it all goes down, like I said, in the Big Apple here in New York City. Hey everybody, I'm TJ DeSantis along with Jason Anik, the UFC Hall of Famer, Jens Pulver, Chase Hooper, Mr. Hands, he's here as well. We appreciate you joining us as we are in the Big Apple. Guys, it's been a long time coming. This fight was supposed to happen a year ago, and ultimately Jon Jones got hurt. We shuffle it around, but we finally get to it. Jens Pulver, you're the Hall of Famer, so you can have the first word. Your thoughts on what is about to happen tomorrow night in the main event?
It's Bones Jones. I just can't wait to see. I don't know what would be more hype. Like, does Stipe have things that he wants to prove? Is there a certain anger that he's going at? Like, I'm going to go out. You're trying to topple the greatest fighter of all time. I get goosebumps at the idea of thinking that could be the biggest upset. That has to play into it. That has to have you motivated. That has to get you fired up. You know what I mean? Then when you're Bones, that's the one thing about him is he seems so calm, cool, and collected because ironically, he's been doing this for so long at the top of the level. Is it any different? You know what I mean?
I hear you. Now, this is the thing. We talk about greatest of all time. That argument is subjective. But when you talk about greatest heavyweight of all time, statistically speaking, it doesn't get any better than Stipe Miocic. He's the only man that's been able to hold on to this title, lord over the division at times. And now he gets the opportunity to cement it, not only just in the heavyweight class, but if he's able to be the first man to actually rightfully topple Jon Jones, that would be something else. Chase Hooper, how likely do we get an upset in the making of our main event tomorrow?
Yeah, I feel like based on the face-offs and some of the stuff that I've seen, it seems like Jon's kind of in a spot trying to hype himself up. Like, I don't know if you saw the exchange. He's like, don't you ever say anything about my kids again.
I did, yeah.
And Stipe was like, what? I didn't say anything about your kids. So it seems like he's maybe trying to hype himself up. So maybe he's already thinking it's kind of a foregone conclusion. Like, he thinks he's going to win, which sometimes it's not the best way to go into a fight. You're not going to respect that guy. And Stipe is definitely a guy to respect. So I think he's got a chance in there. And it seems like Jon's trying to, hype himself up to make sure that he doesn't have that chance. But we'll see, I guess, tomorrow night.
I guess the line that Jon took umbrage with was Stipe said something along the lines of, I know my kids don't have to worry about their dad being looked upon as an asshole. And maybe Jon Jones is guilty of being an asshole at times. I think we all are, let's be honest. But Jason, your thoughts on that line actually ruffling the feathers of Johnny Bones? Is it truly something he took offense to, or is he trying to, just hype himself up to get into a fist fight?
Well, I'd be curious to ask the fighters to an extent, right? Is after the fact, does he come out and say, I'm just trying to hype up the fight a little bit? Because sometimes you're trying to give it a little bit juice, give the fight a little juice. But no, I definitely am with you, Chase. Like, I definitely think it struck a nerve, and I think there are certain things underneath the surface that are bothering Jones. But that doesn't mean I don't think he can execute in the octagon, right? Aspinall's, I guess, podcast host was going to do an interview. You saw him walk out of the interview like, I don't necessarily want to put myself in front of this. And I will say, if he's not going to fight Aspinall, I don't blame him for being like, I don't want to mess with talking about any of that right now. But I will say, I think Stipe Miocic is live as a big dog, as the consensus sort of greatest heavyweight, at least statistically speaking, of all time, as you said. But I can't wait. I was not as excited about this fight a year ago, if I'm being honest with you. And even to an extent, like I've been calling it the battle of the legends, right? Because I do feel like Tom Aspinall's my heavyweight champ, if I'm being honest. No disrespect to Jon Jones. So for me, I'm sort of looking forward to getting past this to see where this division goes to.
Yeah, we're going to get into that dynamic of what we really know about Jon Jones as a heavyweight here in a little bit. But I will say there's potential, guys, that really this could be maybe the last fight for both men. There's a lot up in the air. Obviously Aspinall is that sort of sub-story all week. If Jon gets his hand raised, will he fight Tom Aspinall and unify those titles? But, Jens, you've been talking about a fantasy matchup between Johnny Bones and Poatan Pereira for a long time. Now that's actually, I don't know if you willed this into existence, but apparently it's out there.
May I? Because it makes sense. It does in so many ways, because Bones Jones, Aspinall Aspinall is, and I'm not saying that John can't beat him, but Aspinall, I've been saying, you are the heavyweight. You are what every heavyweight should look like, be like. You're as fast as a 205-pounder that rolls around at 280 pounds of just, whoa. All right, so we're not getting any younger, Bones. I love you to death. You're my dude, so it makes sense for him and Pereira to have this legendary fight that only these two can have. Literally, this is the best opponent in the world you guys can meet at 220, which, by the way, I think should be a weight class that we have at some point, 225, and then unlimited for heavyweight. Cut the 265 and go as heavy as you want, but have that 225 so people at 40 could drop down. You can tell I do this all the time on the stream. But my point is, now let these two have this legendary fight and roll off into the sunset. This gives Pereira to do something nobody could ever do, but this also gives Bones something that nobody's been able to do and beat him and get motivated to go after that. Not that fighting Miocic, defending his belt and stuff like that can't do it, but when you're a legend like John Bones Jones, what kept you motivated? What keeps you motivated and fired up to fight every single time? You're the guy. Everybody's gunning for you. We have your poster on the wall. We're training to beat you, to smash you. What gets you going? Other than I'm the GOAT and I got to go out there and show you. So this is a big fight to me that would make a lot of sense. I think depending, again, after this, I'm not saying that Miocic isn't win. I'm just saying it would make sense for Bones afterwards.
Yeah, no, 100%. But, I think a lot of people would obviously love to see John, compete, especially if he gets his hand raised. If he does come up short, that's so far to the realm of possibility. I haven't even really thought about it until I just said it right now. But you never know. Like, there's a live dog in the greatest statistical heavyweight of all time in Stipe. But what if, you're a romantic one? If you're a guy that, likes to sit back and go, you know what? I was happy Khabib went out the way that he did and he never, fought again. Is there something that could be truly beautiful about the idea of John and Stipe both laying down their gloves and walking out of Madison Square Garden, not arm in arm, but, as two of the greatest to ever do it? I think that would be pretty special and iconic, not just in mixed martial arts, guys, but Chase, in sports in general. I think that would be one of the biggest moments I could ever even think of.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like, not to say, the Pereira fight, whatever, like, it's just like, where does John Jones go from here? If he beats the greatest, like you were saying, the greatest statistical heavyweight of all time, like, is he fighting down if he's defending the belt from that point? If he fights Pereira, you're fighting a smaller guy, I feel like he just wrestles him. I feel like this is a really good fight for him to end on, which is, I feel like, why they took the time to reschedule it and make this happen. Like, I think that's a great fight for both of them. And, what else would there be for Stipe to do? If he loses this fight, does he keep going? If John loses this fight, I could see him still going. But I think if he wins, I could see him hanging him up.
If Stipe loses, I think he's done. I don't think he's competing again. But if he wins, maybe he'll fight Aspinall just for that paycheck, perhaps. But I think the Alex Pereira fight makes sense for Jones, win or lose, right? The thing about John Jones, to your point, like, I do think they both are done. I do believe tomorrow night will be the last time we see them fight. John Jones, if he were to fight Poatan, let's say, now I think he's going to win, but if he were to, I just think it makes sense either way. And they are closer in weight. So I'm with you. Everything you said, I agree with.
But I am with him, which I would get rid of that belt. That is, so yes, that's what I meant. Aspinall, you're the champ, you do your thing, and let's get that BMF. It's actually had some pretty remarkable things happen behind it, especially after what Max and Gaethje, they've now, that would be the thing. Let's do a BMF. I forgot to add that part in. Hit the BMF. Aspinall, you're now the GOAT, you're the champ, you boom, go do what you do, you're the big boy, and take on this division and smash everybody. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go after a legacy fight, which is what this BMF belt can bring us, and then let these two fight it. That's a, yeah.
I mean, certainly if Poatan is holding the real belt and John Jones is still the GOAT undefeated heavyweight, he could compete for the real belt, but I love where you're going.
I think that's an easy fight for John. I think that's why he wants it. He's just going to grapple him up.
I agree with you. And he will never fight Tom Aspinall,
Yeah.
as much as Dana would like to see it. I don't see that.
It's going to be John Jones, Cyril Gane, where people are going like, this is going to be a crazy fight, and then it's just one-way traffic. And you're like, oh, that's it?
But he's pretty much gone and said as much. He said, why would I want to fight a guy like Tom Aspinall? If you're my manager, like, look me in the eye and actually make the case. And honestly, if I'm being, truthful, I can't find a reason
Why?
to make him take a risky fight like that. You know, it's hard for me to understand what John might think about Legacy or doesn't think about Legacy, because let's be honest, I mean, it's fitting that his loss on his record is granted a BS DQ, but he still beat himself in that sense, and that's very fitting of his entire career. His only losses and stumbles were largely inflicted.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think if anybody does deserve to be that, honest and upfront, it's John Jones. But it's a hell of a way to, get an extra, payday or more money added on if you say you don't want to do something, and low key in the back of your mind, I'm like, all right, just keep adding more zeros in the check and I'll do it. Posturing, if you will. So.
He's been asked a lot about his legacy this week, and he's said a couple times, I came, I saw, and I conquered. And that I think he's sort of satisfied with his legacy. I really do. But he's not a heavyweight. 2 minutes at heavyweight in his career, right? So yeah. I understand you're going against Stipe, but, these guys, just the inactivity to me makes this a little bit comical, if I'm being honest, right? I hate to say it, right? I'm all about the meritocracy. So, right, for me, we don't really have I feel like we almost have a card without a championship belt. And I know my brother works with promotion, right? But we almost have a pay-per-view without a real championship belt at stake, at least when you're coming at it from my cynical perspective. Sorry.
Well, we're going to talk about that here as our night continues. We are live here in Legends in New York City. If you are around, come out tomorrow. We're going to be doing the watch-along here. Jens Pulver hanging out, as is Chase Hooper. I'm TJ DeSantis. This is Jason Anik. Mr. Hands, your hands are needed to go sign some autographs, so you got to jump out of here.
Am I switching out
we'll,
here?
We'll join you here in a moment. So
see you guys back
We'll
soon.
get Chase back in a moment.
He's going to get mobbed out there.
Yeah.
Careful.
All right, so we're going to bring in a gentleman who made some news yesterday. If you don't know, let us tell you. The grappling world is on fire, ladies and gentlemen, and this guy is a superstar, to say the least, and he's now officially found a home here with the UFC and UFC Fight Pass. The Invitational coming up on December 5th. It is Mikey Musumeci. Man, Mikey, I'm terrible. I'm an Italian myself. I should be able to say your name properly, but it's in my head all day. So.
Well, if it makes you feel better, I don't even know how to say my name right.
All right, we'll just go with Mikey.
Some people call me Musumeci, Musumeci. So I just go with all of them. Like, I really don't know how to say it right. So.
Well, you're must-see TV, and the next stop for that is the UFC Fight Pass Invitational. The FBI 9 is headed your way, live in Las Vegas at the Apex. And, man, it's exciting to have you here. You've been lighting up the world. You're one of the grappling superstars that truly, I hate to say this, obviously it's a combat sports game. It's prize fighting in a lot of ways. But when I hear you talk about jiu-jitsu, you say things that are very telling about your belief in the sport. And you talked about how for a long time jiu-jitsu athletes, they had to find their way to MMA to make money, and they haven't been able to compete. That has changed over the course of, I'd say, 5 or 6 years. Gordon Ryan is a superstar making serious money. Craig Jones, Nicky Rada, a lot of guys are actually finding paydays grappling where this is a sport where you have to pay to compete for the longest time,
Yeah, so jiu-jitsu has been growing rapidly, right? Like every block now, like anywhere you are, there's jiu-jitsu gyms. So everyone could train, kids could train, older people could train, So it's just the fastest growing sport right now in the world. And just like you said, like in the past when you did jiu-jitsu, you had to switch to MMA to make money. Now we finally have a platform where jiu-jitsu people could stay in jiu-jitsu without bashing their head, and they can make money. So it's really incredible, and it's a lot of pressure on me and a lot of responsibility to keep us growing jiu-jitsu, So I'm just so excited and eager for this match in 3 weeks to do that.
Yeah, and that's what's exciting. You are incredibly entertaining from a grappling standpoint, but this is a sport that's not going to get over that threshold unless we get casual fans involved. And there's, and that's a word that I don't really like to say, especially in MMA. If you're a casual, it's like, you're the scum of the earth. You're not a hardcore. But casuals, hardcores, make the world go round, but casuals keep the lights on. If you don't have casual sports fans involved, then what you're doing is a hobby. And Jens Pulver, I can't believe that anybody would want to be the best grappler in the world as a part-time job. You just can't do it.
No, and that's one thing that I love about him. He doesn't know me very well, but I became a massive fan of his because of how much he loves it. How you literally eat, sleep, and breathe.
It's my passion.
And your passion. And having my son in wrestling now, trying to get these athletes to understand, there is people that go through the motions, and there are some that it's an absolute lifestyle. And the minute I started hearing you became infectious in that way. I'm like, God, I love this kid because you love the game. I mean, you love everything about it from the smallest little details.
Yeah.
How did that happen? What was it that in your head, like, this is it for me, so these people can know?
Yeah, so I started training jiu-jitsu when I was 4 years old, so I've been training 24 years now. And I've still been addicted, like, the same vibe as when I was 4, you know? And it's just in my heart since I was that age. I remember when I was a little kid, I loved it so much. I used to watch videos on YouTube, and I used to take a stuffed animal in my room and drill on the stuffed animal. So I've had that passion since I was so young, you know, and I'm from a small town in New Jersey. So being back in New York right now, it's really special to me, like full circle of life, you know. So and now it's just surreal where I'm at, like after drilling on a stuffed animal as a little kid to talking to you guys. So like you said, the casuals have to be able to watch jiu-jitsu and understand it because it's very complex. But I feel like we could do a good job at like working around the complexity of jiu-jitsu and making everyone interested in it. So that's my goal with competing. That's my goal with everything that we're doing right now.
Well, you're doing something right. I mean, we've got one of the greatest fights that the UFC has ever put on, headlining Madison Square Garden this weekend, and somehow Dana White's talking about jiu-jitsu and yourself, Mikey. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Listening to him makes you want to understand. If you never understood the sport and you look at Mikey, if that's cool, right?
Yes,
and you look at him and you're like, just the way that he gets hyped up, it's so hard not to love this sport because he loves it. And that's when you start finding people that love what they do. People always say that about me, being out here doing the streams with you. It's so hard not to watch you because you get so excited. You're so behind. You love it. And when you meet kids, juniors like this, what you're like, oh my, yes, I need to know more about this because I need to know more about him, and I want to see why he loves it.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
What's amazing to me, guys, too, is Mikey, you're talking about how when you were a kid, you're drilling on a stuffed animal and thinking about like how normal kids think about winning the Game 7 of the World Series or hitting a buzzer beater to win the NBA Finals. You're daydreaming about something that like wasn't a job. It's like what you do after work.
And it was from a small town, New Jersey. Like jiu-jitsu was not big at all during that time, you know. So for it to grow like it has, and seeing it grow like it has, you know. And also what I represent, you know, I'm not like a tough guy. I don't look like a fighter. I don't look like anything like that, right? But I'm able to compete with all of them because jiu-jitsu is all thinking. It's all cerebral. Yep. So it's such a, I feel like I represent a whole different part of jiu-jitsu, and I could show that everyone could do it. Yeah. You know, so that's my goal with what I represent.
Yeah, you got to check out Mikey's on the FPI 9, headed your way December 5th, live and exclusively on UFC Fight Pass. And he hasn't beaten me up yet or tried. Jason Anik was on the call with me all week, last week for PGF. I called you a casual.
We're doing this broadcast. He called me a casual, Mike, on air. We're covering PGF last week, and I am a casual when it comes to jiu-jitsu, right? But so we covered the PGF, right? 120 jiu-jitsu matches for me in 4 days regular season. But
did you learn jiu-jitsu fast?
I don't know how well I know it yet. I mean, I've been watching mixed martial arts for a long time. My twin brother's been calling UFC fights for a long time, so I've been in it, right? But talking to you is very interesting for me, and being there last week when he called me a casual, but I think I caught the bug a little bit. But it's really interesting to hear you talk about the pressure of sort of carrying that torch and building it, because people will say sort of pressure is a privilege, and I bet you believe it is a privilege.
No, I'm so
but I
grateful
like
for
that you look at it because they need you. You know, the sport needs you.
Yeah, I know that I have so much pressure right now, but I'm blessed for that pressure, you know, and I want to make that the next generation has better opportunities than my generation does. So I'm super eager to do that.
I love it.
You know, we've got some history here in our booth. Jens Pulver, the first ever UFC lightweight champion, and Mikey, you're the first ever athlete signed to an exclusive grappling deal with the UFC and on UFC Fight Pass. So what does that sort of tell us about like your plans moving forward? Because, you know, there's got to be more grappling events if you want to stay busy. You plan on being pretty busy, you know, showcasing your skills?
Well, UFC is going to have, I think, 6 events next year, and I plan to do all 6. Wow. So that's what's nice about jiu-jitsu. Your body doesn't get too beat up. I never take breaks. I'm always training. Like, even traveling, I trained this morning like 3 hours, 4 hours. So that's like my morning coffee. Coffee, like how New York would say it. So,
in your back pocket.
Yeah. But, so I'm constantly working to get better, and I keep improving, you know, so I'm just eager to keep showing my jiu-jitsu and just keep improving and live this surreal life that I'm living right now.
And I think if the general public can fall in love with jiu-jitsu, just 1/8% that you're in love with it, is going to be Mikey Mania all over on the Fight Pass Invitational, UFC Fight Pass. And Mikey, it's super exciting. You're a very intriguing competitor on and off the mat, and Just tell us real quick about your opponent, Felipe Machado, a talented guy, and someone that's going to bring the fight to you as well.
Yeah, so Felipe is a leg locker, I think. He does a lot of leg locks. Like, he'll attack my legs a lot. But I don't really care about my opponent. I just focus on myself, you know. I only have one speed, and that's just go forward and finish the opponent, right? So much respect to him, but I'm just looking to finish him however the match goes.
Did you see the switch that clicked over in his head when you had him think about his opponent for that brief second? He went into his own. It's like, there's nothing he's going to offer me that I'm not going to spend. That's like, I'm telling you, this guy, I love it. I watched it switch over in his head like that. He's like, there's really nothing, just the idea. And it reminds me back in the day when I was young Jen's world champion, and I'm like, there's nothing. Well, what if it doesn't matter. There's nothing that's going to stop me from what I'm going to do to them. And that's why I watched it in his head right there. That was awesome.
All the hours of work we put in, you know, it makes us very confident in our abilities, you know.
Yeah.
I respect all my opponents, but I know I work very hard every day. 10 to 12 hours of training every day, and I never rest. So I'm very confident in my ability.
And that's how you should be, because you deserve it and you work hard, and that's the idea, right? And if somebody else is very, very strong in their abilities, you guys are going to bump head and clash. You can tell I've become a coach. I'm a wrestling coach now. My son's a sophomore, so I'm becoming a high school wrestling coach at Pleasant Valley. So I can see, that's why I love seeing these mindset stuff. I've moved on to the part now where I'm coaching, and I can see how this transitions. I love listening to Mike. I'm like, oh, I'm going to show all my kids same thing about watching the tapes. I remember my son used to go in there and he would MMA on top of a penguin when he was a kid. So yeah, he was beating him up and stuff, and we're like punch, ground and pound.
Wow.
So it's really cool to hear that, man. I love it.
Yeah, it's phenomenal to say the least. And if you haven't jumped on board yet to check out a Fight Pass Invitational, what I think the FPI does that other jiu-jitsu events haven't done in the past is really focus on the idea of making it a fight night. Yes, it's a grappling event, but it's unlike any other grappling event that you'll see out there. It's a stacked night of jiu-jitsu action in a format that is made to entertain you. The rules are super based in the idea that we need action, and without the action, it's not exciting. And when you got guys that are as talented as Mikey is on the mat and is intriguing off the mat, you can fall in love with these personalities. And Mikey, I know you're feeling that pressure a little bit being the poster on the poster of the FBI, but it's because of athletes like you that are taking this.
I'm blessed for it.
Yeah, taking it to the next level. We can't wait for it, and best of luck in the FPI.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to meet you, sir.
There he is, Mikey Musumeci, joining us here on Extra Rounds as we get ready for the FPI. Again, take a look at it here. You can see it. The fastest growing sport in all of combat sports, I think, is submission grappling. And the next stop is headed your way December 5th in the Apex, and of course, live and exclusive on UFC Fight Pass. We are back here inside Legends in New York City. TJ DeSantis along with Jason Anik, Jens Pulver. Jens, I'm just thinking about where the sport has come from, and I just remember those extreme challenge shows where you're like doing tag team grappling matches. You know, like
always trying to find something just more exciting to get people kind of involved, right? A little more in the aspect that a lot of people, especially back then, the WWF, the pro wrestling kind of thing. So it's like, all right, well, if we added in some tag team aspect and go into submissions, like, you know what I mean, and go out so you can do that. I mean, it was fun to do, kind of get people excited, anything to kind of get them in the door, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and see what they can think about the grappling and stuff like that.
I've talked about this with you on streams in the past, but like, we're always focused on mixed martial arts with the UFC and whatnot, but it's exciting that we're at a time now where we can turn the attention back onto the individual disciplines and find the joy in something that, again, like if you were going to go to a grappling event 15 years ago, it meant you were going to your high school gymnasium or one of the big Abu Dhabis. You know what I mean?
Same 20 of you would all be there. It's kind of like the old school UFC. The same groups would show up every 6 months when we'd have a UFC fight. It was kind of more of it was like a reunion. Everybody got to see each other. You know what I'm talking about, old school. Everybody saying hi, and that's the same thing. And now it's kind of like with this grappling, its little lethal brother, I like to call wrestling, is another one. And I know Fight Pass is doing that. College wrestling and stuff like that. High school wrestling, I really want to be a big part of that because it doesn't get the same amount of love because, right, there's not a belt system and stuff like that. So wrestling was never really looked at as a combative sport. It wasn't a martial art. In a lot of ways it was, and now they're more normal. It's one of the best to have. So it's really cool, like you said, we're having the Fight Pass Invitational. We'll start bringing in wrestling, and we get to go back to those individual sports and really pay homage to each part.
Yeah, and then the week after the FPI, Eddie Bravo's hitting you with Jiu-Jitsu Overdose, 4 individual events on consecutive days down in Cancun, and that's got combat jiu-jitsu as well. So Palm Strikes there. It's got Medusa, all women's promotion. Like I said, it's the best time ever to be a combat sports fan. And if you're a grappling head, you know to head over to UFC Fight Pass. Again, the QR code right now. Get a deal and get signed up for some of the best jiu-jitsu you can find on the mat today. And you said you're getting the bug, Jason. I mean, I'm curious if you tried out any of these moves that you saw at PGF on John, if he's gotten on the line since you've seen him.
No, definitely not. And I may like watching jiu-jitsu. I don't expect to compete, or I don't know, man. Maybe I feel like I should train a little bit. But even talking to Mikey, and I'd be lying to you, and you called him Mikey, so I'll call him Mikey, right?
Yeah,
but I'd be lying to you if I had heard his name before today, right? But look what Dana White's done with Callum Walsh, right? And I mean, listen to this kid talk. So unique, so special, so kind, so humble. I've never seen him compete. I can't wait. I'm a fan.
See what I'm saying? That right there, listening to him, that's how the casual, I want them to see that, because that's what's so infectious with that kid, is the way that it's like, I'm like, he really, like, I was wrestling stuffed animals when I was a kid, just the way that you can tell that he loves it. It's like his whole life.
And you know, you've talked a lot about your coaching experiences, right? And I will say, with children, right? Like, I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. It was football, baseball, basketball. Not a lot of my friends were competing in combat sports or even karate, right? Where a lot of these kids are doing it nowadays in different disciplines, whether it's self-defense. We live in a different world, right? We were all, I know we're old heads, but we were running around all over the streets, come home at night. It's a different world. People want to protect themselves, and the knowledge I have of MMA compared to 5 years ago, it's not even in the same conversation. I think I might have caught the jiu-jitsu bug last week. I can't even believe I'm saying it. We talk about the Fight Pass Invitational, things like that. It went over my head in the past, where now I think I may look up the date. What, December 5th he's fighting?
December 5th, yep. It's going
down. Before my 50th birthday, which makes it even crazier. I know, right? I didn't want to tell him that. About to crack 50. I love it. We're old, man.
Happy birthday, brother.
Yeah. So tune in, watch Mikey Musumeci on the Fight Pass Invitational. Last thing I'll say about jiu-jitsu, it's my favorite sport when it comes to individual combat sports, because there's a different type of demographic that make up the grappling community, and it's very often, more common than not, that the guy who looks like the least likely to be able to kill you in the room is the guy that's the most savage. And look at Mikey. Mikey looks like just a book-smart kid who minds his own business, but he can probably kill 99% of people in any room he ever walks in.
So good when he does it.
Yeah. Yeah, the Mikey lock that he's got is crazy.
And he'll explain it to you so that you'll understand it while he's doing it.
Yeah.
That's how you know. He knows.
I need him sitting next to me when we do this PGF stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Walk me through all these transitions.
120 matches. You made it like a trooper, though. I'm proud of you.
I don't even know where to begin. It was amazing. It was incredible. I have so much takeaway from it. I'm just blown away by what BMAC, Brandon McCaffrey's doing. And how about you pronouncing his name, McCaffrey? That's got to be right, right?
It is McCaffrey, yeah. BMAC for short. No. PGF available for you now on demand. You can check out the finals and the playoffs on UFC Fight Pass. All right, let's get back to what we're all here to talk about. It is a phenomenal week here in New York City, the mecca for combat sports is Madison Square Garden. We haven't even talked, guys, about our co-main event. Let's get into that a little bit. It's reigniting a rivalry, as we'll see Charles Oliveira take on Michael Chandler. Let's kick it over to you, Jens Pulver. Your thoughts on these guys tangling once again as they're going to reignite this rivalry.
You know, and I think a lot of things have changed since there, and it's kind of Chandler. You know, what have you been doing? We know you had this big thing lined up, what you were building up for in a fight like that. Now it doesn't happen, but now you're just ready to fight. You know what I'm saying? And it's like he's been kind of sidelined a lot in that aspect. Like his career, I mean, he waited a long time to compete, because I know he's waiting for that one thing. So what is he going to do, you know what I mean, to get back on that roll, get back on that bus and start fighting again? You know, I mean, I can't wait to see him do it. I know that, yeah, I just can't wait to see him do it.
I mean, here's the thing. Obviously, people were geared up to see him fight Conor McGregor. That might happen, still at some point. But who's going to be upset about matching these two up again?
It's not a bad fight. And he's got. Here's what I love about his style, and you just have to be careful. It's like he can just take a beating, and if he can somehow be standing at the end of that beating, he wins. He can throw heavy bombs. Boom. Over the top, you know what I mean? He can fight, but he doesn't really duck from too much. And I think that especially as we get older, it starts to, not that, I don't throw age into it, he's still a youngster in my book, but you just don't want to be taking those kind of, that's a lot of damage that you take a lot of times You know, but I can't help it. It's like I'd rather strike. I'd rather go toe-to-toe and throw down because that one punch, all I got to do is land it, right?
Well, you know, Charles Oliveira, I mean, what else can be said about him? There's nothing really I need to say about him. I think the story really is about Chandler. I think we all sort of know what we're going to get from Oliveira. But Chandler, I feel like every fight he's lost, he's 2-3 in the UFC. I feel like every fight he's lost in the UFC, he won it, and then he lost it. You know what I mean? And he, ad nauseum, he has said over and over again that when I crack him and when I have my moments of explosivity, I will sort of pull back. I am going to be calmer. I'm going to be more cerebral, and I'm going to sort of wait for those moments. The question is whether he can do that or not, because I do believe he can crack Oliveira. The question is the fight IQ. And I talk about the welterweight champion Bilal Muhammad a lot. But his fight IQ, whoever he fights, you can be sure if he's fighting Shavkat Rakhmonov next, he's going to be ready with a game plan to go after that so-called boogeyman, whatever it is. So Mike Chandler, I think, comes down to fight IQ. But Charles Oliveira, even if the mental game for Chandler's there, I don't know how beatable Oliveira is.
I mean, that's the problem. Pick your poison with the man known as DuBronx, because he's a savage on the feet, great Muay Thai, very difficult to deal with in the clinch. We've been talking about jiu-jitsu. I think it's more scary to be on the floor with him for prolonged periods of time. You get knocked out by Oliveira, it happens quick, it's over. You have to sit there in the man's guard or sit there in his triangle choke or a guillotine as it inches closer and closer and the lights get dimmer and dimmer, and then all of a sudden you're tapping out or you're waking up going, wait, what the hell happened to me? And you guys talk about Michael Chandler. Like, obviously there was motivation to wait and sit, but this man is in the twilight of his career. I still think he has the ability to potentially make a title run, and you know, what are you going to do? You're going to sit there and wait for something that may or may not ever happen, or are you going to go out there and take your destiny into your own hands and go put on a show? And we talk about fight IQ. The only thing that I think Michael Chandler cares about more than winning is putting on a show, and there's no better place to do it than the greatest arena in the world.
Which is absolutely insanity, but that is it. But he's got to make sure while he's doing that show, you got to figure out how to make him flinch. Again, landing heavy shots, make him second guess. Hit him with the takedown in, nice and explosive. So now you can level change, and Charles can kind of flinch a little bit. He's been in there, Charles has been in there so long, he's seen literally everything.
Yeah.
So you have to just go out there and you're going to have to show him, okay, well, there's this style. Boom, I can hit him clean, I can level change, I can take you down and be that wrestler. Pummel inside. You know, the one thing that really has been lost a lot, I think, in MMA to this day, it's either we're shooting in on the ground or we're standing up, we're striking, but all that in between, my Randy Couture, my dirty boxing, holding on to the head, not level changing to the takedown, but keeping the under and beating somebody up in here on the rib, plumbing the head, throwing the knees, making them try to get away. And I can see if you start doing that with them, like you should be, obviously everybody's leveled up, but you could play that game, then drop into a takedown, and we need to start making him guess a little bit. Like I said, Chandler, love you to death, but he just runs head first into the wall until he breaks the damn door down or he doesn't.
Yeah, no, and it's fun to watch, but you know, it's not necessarily how you want to cash those checks and potentially leave a win bonus sitting there or a spot to move up the rankings. But yeah, phenomenal to say the least. It is your co-main event. Let's get back to our main event and talk about this fight with Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic. It's been a long time coming. Again, both men in a lot of ways fighting for legacy. Jon Jones, he's the greatest to ever do it in mixed martial arts, I believe. You can make arguments about why he might not be. I think largely those arguments don't have anything to do with his actual talent. You're going to talk about things that happen outside of the octagon more than you are inside the octagon. But this is a fight at heavyweight for the UFC heavyweight title. Whether we think Tom Aspinall is the real champion or not is regardless of the fact. The winner of this fight's going to walk out of MSG as the UFC heavyweight champion. But Jon Jones, to me, he's not proven as a heavyweight. He's done amazing things at light heavyweight and looked really good against Ciryl Gane. But if you look at Jones in his last few fights at light heavyweight, he was the guy that's getting hit a lot. People firmly believe he didn't do enough to get his hand raised over Dominic Reyes. And I don't know if Jon Jones can take the amount of punishment that he's had in, say, the Reyes fight or the Thiago Santos fight, if he can do that in a heavyweight fight for 25 minutes. And no one better to test your chin than someone like Stipe Miocic. Now, it's a test that Jon would prefer to not take. But, guys, I want to open up buy or sell with you here and talk about, Jon Jones as a heavyweight. Jason Anik, I think Jon Jones is unproven at heavyweight. He's a lot of unknowns. Do you buy or sell that?
I buy it. I agree with every word out of your mouth. Couldn't agree with you more, frankly, right? And look, who knows what would have happened against Cyril Gane if the fight went on for more than 2 minutes. But the thing I've been saying a lot this week about Cyril Gane is there are nights when he shows up in that octagon and it's like, what are you really getting? Where he's a ferocious athlete, but just didn't even look like it, right? And look, I respect Jon Jones tremendously, but the body of work just isn't there. Not only in, we have 2 minutes, but also it's been so much time, right? And between him and Stipe, there's just, I don't even know how to analyze this given how long it's been. But I am starting to get excited for it either way.
Jens Pulver, your thoughts?
Failed takedowns will wear you out. Failed clinches will wear you out. And that's up to Stipe to make sure Bones fails. Fail at these takedowns. Don't let him level change. Don't flinch on it. Plow through him when he tries to come in with a half-hearted shot, when he's just lightly poking. Drill him, hurt him, walk him down, be the bigger fighter and make him have to take a bad shot. Make him do, and then when you do, sit on him and be heavy. Make him carry you around. That's what we got to do. We got to take Bones Jones and put him in the quicksand and see if I can't be the bigger fighter and beat you inside here. If you're Stipe, make everything miserable. Because if Bones, like he was able to do with Cyril, where was the struggle? And I'm not saying on it, but it really wasn't that much. He got to just kind of casually get in there, boom, level change, boom, sit down, where was the struggle? You got to make him struggle. If he's not really a heavyweight, then he needs to find out that he's not. And if you are a heavyweight and you're a Stipe Miocic, I'm going to show you exactly how hard it is. Don't get caught with the bended back trying to snatch up my leg. I'm going to make sure I'm going to get nice and heavy, and I'm just going to sit there. Nowhere to go but make you carry me. And that's that bar, that stamina bar that starts to drop every failed takedown. It starts to hurt you, it starts to wear, and desperation starts to set in.
You know, we can argue whether or not Jon Jones has a deserved loss in his past, you know, whether it be the Gustafsson fight, their first meeting, the Reyes fight, the Santos fight, you know, split decisions there. One thing we can't dispute is no one has been able to put the lights out of Jon Jones. Jens Pulver, can you, without hesitancy, say that Jon Jones can take Stipe Miocic's best punch and walk through it?
I don't think he's going to even get hit that clean. I love him. And again, nothing against the open. That's Bones Jones. Nope. Bones that's the greatest dude to do it on 2 feet. There's period. People can say what they want, but that's Bones Jones. He is nope. he's just amazing. Now, surprise me. Because everybody else would be the same thing. Stipe goes out there and boop. There it is. Heavyweights hit hard.
I really agree with that. I hate to agree with both of you so much up here. I like dissenting opinions, but I agree with you so much. It's so hard for me to imagine that best shot getting through on Bones. But I don't know if he can take it. I actually like that he's a little bit lighter, and you know, my brother saw some abs on him. I think that's a good thing, right? It's not like Stipe's huge at heavyweight either. So I think he can take that best punch, but I'm with Jens. I think he's protecting himself.
All right, so let me ask you to be a little bit more decisive with what you're saying rather than agreeing with everyone, Jason Anik. Buy or sell, Stipe is the smart pick here in this main event. You look at the line, I mentioned there's a lot of X factors. Yes, Jon Jones, time and time again, historically, does what he needs to do to win. But is this a dog or pass situation? With you look at what we know about the heavyweight division and about both men as heavyweights, is Miocic the only logical pick you can make, with the value?
In terms of picking and betting on the fight, I'm selling that all day. I'll find value on Jon Jones somewhere else, whether it's a win in round 2 or maybe even the fight to go a certain longer distance. But no, I don't see Stipe emerging victorious under any circumstance, so I don't think it's a smart pick in the fight.
All right, let's take a look at the odds, courtesy of our friends over at DraftKings. Real quick, if you want to get some skin in the game, you know what to do. Head over to DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Use the code FIGHTPASS. You get a whole bunch of rewards just for doing so. But here are your odds for Saturday's main card. Jon Jones, no surprise, the favorite, minus 625. For Johnny Bones, the comeback on the underdog, and again, statistical greatest heavyweight to ever do it, Stipe Miocic, plus 455. I'm curious, guys, how much does this line have to do with the layoff and the sort of unknowns about Miocic as well, rather than the fact that he's just not as good as Jon Jones?
Let me ask this question, if I may. How old is he?
42, I believe.
42?
See, I knew it, but I just wanted to ask that because that right there, that's a big 42.
Right.
Is that young now? I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not going to look at him and go, dude, you're old, but I'm just saying,
I mean, Glover Teixeira strapped himself up at that age. It is a little younger now.
It is a little, but do you see what I'm saying? We're just
I
on
do.
that. You're 42, and you've been kind of where you've been a little bit of that. You know, I mean, a spring chicken coming into camp training. How did everything go? How do you feel? I mean, we're going to tell ourselves we feel great because we have to. Are we telling ourselves because, man, I've been on step? We're 42.
Right.
42. Are we? Is 45 the new 30,
Right.
39?
Right.
Or is that what we're doing? I mean, maybe.
And let me
Damn
ask,
it, Glover, you did this to it, but who knows?
But like for Chandler and Stipe, right, who both have had some time away,
Yeah.
can that benefit them in some ways?
I think it depends what you were doing in that time away. Were you working on your mental? Were you working on your flexibility? Were you working on your timing? Were you learning how to just kind of wipe the board clean and become a grappler? You know what I mean? These are when you have those times to take a clean slate and rebuild everything that you wanted, if you did. Or you sat your ass down and was eating bonbons. You weren't really doing a whole lot. And you just spent the entire thing. What makes me nervous about older fighters, are we just, I'm guilty is why I say this, are we just going through a training camp to get back into shape and just get back off the couch and just get back into shape and show up, oh man, look, I look good, I feel good? Or are we taking an already made blade and sharpening that thing like we used to do when we were younger, and we were just sharpening those edges and just ripping things, and our camp was based on making ourselves that much better? You see what I'm saying?
Great
There's
stuff.
a lot of people that camp is everything, so we'll see.
Yeah, as a guy who gets older every year, just like you do, I have found every time I hit a new, 10 years, so I'm 40 right now, I keep saying, oh yeah, 40's the new 30. So I'm sure when I'm 50, I'll say 50's the new 40. But it is crazy to think about John Jones, when he rose to stardom, was the youngest UFC champion in history. I was in Minneapolis, in the Target Center, when he was throwing all sorts of spinning stuff in his UFC debut against Andre Guzmão. I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't know who this kid was. I think he was an underdog that night at UFC 87, and now we potentially can see him put a huge punctuation mark on one of the greatest careers, if not the greatest, I think the greatest career in combat sports history. Now, one thing, Jens, you've hit on this a little bit, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. When you were fighting, when you got into the sport, it's kind of like when Mikey decided he was going to take over jiu-jitsu. It wasn't a profession. It was a hobby. It was something that, you could make money, but you weren't going to be able to put a nest egg away and take care of your family.
Yeah.
But, now we have people that, are getting into the sport, thinking that they can reach the level of a Conor McGregor or John Jones. And, I'm curious where John is at, because he talks about how he doesn't need to do anything. He's got all the money in the world that he needs. But you know better than anybody, when you are a fighter at this level, it is a part of your identity. Yeah. Now, John has obviously gone through ebbs and flows of activity, but if John does decide to walk away, do you think that he's a guy that will be firmly satisfied with his career and can leave it in the rear view and find new meaning and new purpose in enjoying life rather than trying to enjoy life as a fighter?
Well, that's the hardest thing. And I tell anybody this, when you finally hit the end of that road and it hits you, you see people all the time retire, and then then it sits on like, man, this is kind of permanent. This is permanent. Wait, there's only one thing left after this, and it's not very good. It's like, man, I want to get back. Okay, nope, you know what? I'm not ready to go meet Father Time yet. I'm not ready to have this happen. I don't care who you are. When it hits you, there's some people, again, my hat's off again to Khabib, staying away and stuff like that. And if you can find happiness and you can find those other things that give you the same kind of drive and the pleasures and things like that, find new passions, then you could be okay. But that's the one thing with any of them, and when everything gets quiet and it's just you and you're the one that's there, how are you dealing with it? Because everybody reminds you. You get to the point where you're this youngster, you're this rocket, you're this up-and-comer, then you're this, you're this star, then you're this veteran, this wily veteran, then you're just, man, you're the old guy doing this. You're the old guy. How much more do you have? And see, the world starts reminding you, then you start thinking about it. And it just kind of depends where you're at. Nah, man, I'm going to shut everybody up, and it motivates you. But, there's always that moment, though. It's hard when you have to make that. So hopefully you can find that happiness when it does happen. But it gets a hold of you. I don't care who you are. When it comes time, there's all this talking about it. But
yeah. well, and I think John Jones has had some struggles in his personal life, even during some of his times where he wasn't as active or as he got older. Right. Even Alexander Volkanovski, one of the all-time greats, has talked about when he doesn't have a fight on the books, maybe, drinking a little bit, or he doesn't like, right? So I think for all of you guys, having fights on the books, it makes a difference. And anyone who retires, I think this next step will be challenging. I say to my brother, we're 46 years old, I'm like, bro, I want you to think about golf a little bit. I'm serious. I want you to think about what you want to do to enjoy yourself, right? Whereas I think, unless he's calling fights and doing this, something's gonna be missing.
Well, it's just like even people in prison, even people in the military, when you get on this regimented schedule and you get on this calendar and you're following it, and all of a sudden one day, boom, you're not. You know what I mean? Even when you're in prison, get up, go to bed, get up, go to bed. This is what you're doing. Your week is laid out in front of you. When you're in training camps, every day is laid out in front of you. Your job is to show up. Show up and train your ass off. In the military, show up, and then one day, poof, like when a fight ends. Right. Well, I just rose up this mountain and boom, we hit the floor. And it's like, now we get this week of depression and you get this week of sadness. Well, then there's a moment when all of a sudden it's life, and then boom, and it's like, how long can you stand this? You got to learn something that I learned along the way is how to regiment myself, how to build my own. And again, Jesse, it's for love and appreciation, the calendar. He's got a year, that learning how to still work on that calendar and now be my own motivation, my own coach, my own, you know what I mean? That gets me. I don't need to have that one certain date. I just have things I want to do. There's just to live life and go after it that way. So again, making those adjustments, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think about Stipe Miocic in the same sort of question. If he does walk away and never competes again after Saturday, I think he's going to struggle a lot more than John Jones would at not being a fighter anymore, because that's just Stipe's mindset. He's a blue-collar working, individual, hard-working guy. Granted, he's a firefighter. He can still find a purpose there, but, I think Stipe of the two would have a harder time living a life post-fighter.
Well, you want me to disagree with you? I couldn't disagree with you more. I saw some footage of him this week with his kids. I mean, oh man, he looks so incredible with his kids. I think my brother asked him, he's like, you're so playful with your kids. How do you even turn that off? No, I think he's super content. It's like, bro, he's already been living the retired life, right? Yep. Fighting some fire. With respect, I think it's good we disagree, right? No, I think he will transition. I feel like he's been in that life for a few years already.
It's like, I can't believe he kept that job the whole time. It's like, damn, you're pretty good. If I could go back in hindsight and I could have been working as a wrestling coach and a teacher and fighting in the process, and I can just drive right back into what I've already been doing, minus the fighting, I think that does a lot when it comes to filling up and giving those passions are still there. He's not losing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, too, that I think is laid on thick here, in the fights that we're talking about, but even, further down the card, Chris Weidman on this card as well. This fight card at Madison Square Garden Saturday night, it's full of UFC Hall of Famers to be. And, that's exactly what you want here when you bring the world's greatest, mixed martial arts promotion to the greatest arena of all time. Jones, Hall of Famer, Miocic, Hall of Famer, Oliveira, Hall of Famer. I think Chandler, maybe it doesn't have the accolades in the UFC yet to be a Hall of Famer, but he's one of the greatest lightweights of all time, and it's special to see this card play out in this city.
He's definitely somebody that he's had nothing but attention from the first minute he's fighting. He's moved the needle one way or the other. He's been right in the middle of it from the very beginning, just tossed in, and you're one of these guys. And now, speaking of another guy that you were talking about, definitely a wrestling Hall of Famer, Bo Nickal Day. Bo Nickal Day. That's like Bo Nickal Day.
No doubt about it. And I think Bo Nickal's a future UFC Hall of Famer too, because I think he's going to be a champion. I think sky's the limit for him, so I'm with you. But Michael Chandler, right? Yeah, he came in right away and right out of the gate. What we said earlier, 2-3 in the UFC. Faced all the killers, but he'll find his way into the fight wing. One of his fights will end up in the Hall of Fame. He'll get in there somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing too. I think you hit the nail on the head saying that, whether or not your accolades came in the UFC or another promotion, the UFC Hall of Fame has really become the standard for recognizing MMA's greatest and brightest. And I think Chandler's a guy that has had some epic fights. And let's not undersell what he has done in the UFC. He's done a great job being every bit as entertaining as people have wanted him to be. Whether or not he gets his hand raised, it almost seems to be second thought for him. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, guys. It is about being entertaining. And again, must see TV. Michael Chandler's that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. No matter what, this is still still a sport. We have to be entertaining. This is sports entertainment, and he's got the entertainment side absolutely covered. And that's, I mean, you can't hate on somebody like that, because no matter what, as much as we can tuck into a small room and fight in the back room and just nobody can see it, but he's always rose to the occasion. He loves it.
No doubt. My brother was talking to me about this kid for a long time when he was in Bellator, talking about how great a kid he was. And so it really is a whole different lens when you're not in the big show and you're developing as a combat sports star. You're not in the UFC. Eyeballs just aren't on you.
Yeah, no, 100%. You know, we are not in the Garden tonight. We are in Legends in New York City, which, by the way, Jens, you're going to be here tomorrow to do the watch-along.
Yes, I'm excited. I can't wait. So hopefully there'll be too much. I don't know what kind of noise and mayhem. Hopefully there's enough noise. Get people in there, but I'm excited. Really excited. I love these watch-alongs.
Oh, yeah, pulverize. I love me some Jens Pulver. I might give up my octagon side seat to just hang out here with this guy, man. I can't get enough. That energy, Jens. I'm all about it, bro.
Have chat. I need you out there. You know this. I can't do it without you. So most of the time they're my guests. So I got to have that chat.
Yeah, if you are in the area and can't, get over to MSG for whatever reason, come hang out here at Legends. It's going to be a phenomenal time. And Chase Hooper's here. We're going to get him back. But I want to go back to this Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler fight. We've been doing some buying and selling, so I want to get back to that. Let's take a look at what's up for sale here on Chandler and Oliveira. Oliveira priced right now at -265. Jason Anik, I'm going to ask you, is that the value you would expect in this rematch? I know Oliveira, he won the previous meeting. He has the ability to put out anybody, whether it's, via submission or strikes. But he's a guy that is susceptible at times to having some scary moments and potentially, getting stopped. What are your thoughts? -265, is that the right value?
Yeah, I think it's right on the number. I buy it. I think it's the right number. And I will say about Charles, yeah, I think he is susceptible sometimes, right? But I said earlier, he's won 11 of 13. Only losses are the pound-for-pound GOAT Islam Makhachev and a split at UFC 300 or Arman Tsarukyan. So this dude is just on an absolute tear. And I also think he's going to learn from the fact that he really could have lost to Chandler back in their first meeting in the first round. I think that's going to help him tomorrow night.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. It's a phenomenal fight, and matchup styles make fights. It's a great style versus style here. I just don't know what you do if you're standing across from Charles Oliveira, because if you hurt him and knock him down, you go, oh my God, I didn't get knocked out, and I have him hurt, but do I want to engage with him on the floor? Because he might triangle me. It's pick your poison, and Charles Oliveira is never out of it, to say the least. But again, Jens, you were talking about a little bit earlier, the sort of narrative for the last couple years. It feels like the last 5 years for Michael Chandler is he going to fight Conor McGregor? So up for bid next is Chandler fights Conor McGregor in 2025. Do you buy that or do you sell it?
I'm not buying it. I don't buy it. I think that boat is passed. I think it's gone.
No pun intended with the boat.
Yeah,
the ship sailing, right?
But my man's on a boat. Like we all fight to make that money. My man made the billies. It's not even. He's on a boat constantly chasing the summer. But I'm just saying. So I don't know if that'll happen when it comes to that. But that's the one thing with Chandler's. Let's focus on, you got to push that aside. I know that was all you thought about for a long time. That's got to be tough, because there's a party like, is it ever? But it's time to move past it and let's move on.
Yeah, and I sell that as well. I'm not going to buy Conor McGregor fighting until he makes the walk or he's back in the pool, the testing pool, or whatever it is. But for Chandler, the 2-year setback, forget the money. Yeah. I feel like the UFC takes care of him, whether it's in this fight or whatever it is. But it's more about a guy that likes to be active. What could he have maybe accomplished on his way chasing instead of holding out for the millies, if you will,
Yeah, that's the thing, too. Whether or not, you believe it's going to happen, I think taking this fight is the right move. I think moving on, because here's the thing, if McGregor comes back and wants to fight Chandler, it's always going to be there on the table. It's up to Conor more than it's up to Chandler. Chandler will take that fight on 2 minutes notice at any point if it comes across the table. But we need to see Michael Chandler, because Father Time wins all matches, and Michael Chandler's no spring chicken. But you mentioned him a moment ago, spring chickens. I don't want to call Bo Nickal a chicken. That's not what I'm trying to say. But he's a young man in the MMA game, but one of the most proven and decorated grapplers to ever get into this game. We'll see him take on Paul Craig. He's a huge favorite. Let's take a look at those odds again, courtesy of DraftKings Sportsbook. Bo Nickal -1,200, and it's not surprising. I think you could argue that it could be -1,500 or -2,000. Bo Nickal, he's a tough guy. I mean, this is a guy that went to the mats and did a grappling match with Gordon Ryan after taking 3 jiu-jitsu classes. He's fearless. Angeles. I watched him at the FPI, pull guard on Oliver Taza. I mean, Bo Nickal's like a purple belt, and a lot of that purple belt is still based on the back of his wrestling pedigree. That said, Paul Craig is a great grappler. He could throw something up, I guess, but I think it's a Hail Mary, guys. I think that line is justified on Bo Nickal, and I'd be willing to bet everything that I have on Bo Nickal. Now that I've cursed the man, I think there's a reason in my sort of confidence in his pick is really what has propelled him to this platform thus far, Jens, and there's a lot to get excited about and an interesting style matchup for him.
It's funny that you said now that you cursed the man. Since you cursed him, I'm going to say what it is that probably that could cause that triangle choke. Yeah. That's holding in too much on a single leg, being the wrestler, down on a single with the head, and they jump. There's a triangle choke awaiting. I can't get Rumina Sot out of my head. I love you, you legend. But if you had a single leg on Rumina, you're getting triangle. There's no, it's giving you. Yeah. It's giving you, especially when you take down and those arms, you haven't climbed up the waist yet, and they can boom, and they can triangle you. Just depends how you remember. You're not a collegiate wrestler anymore. You're an MMA wrestler, and it's a different world because when you drive with that head, guillotines are left and right all the time, and you got to be careful because we're taught we drive with our head, and if we're down on that arms down and grabbing that single, so those would be the only two kind of things. Again, I like that, especially as a wrestler. Are we comfortable enough to get inside and not panic, but we got to be able to close the distance? I use Randy Couture because he was the best to do it. His hands up and just kind of winky right, just walked in, block, and then he got a hold of you. Now you're a wrestler. Now we can pummel our way down into takedowns. But when you're shooting from a distance, you're creating scrambles. And Craig, man, he likes those scrambles. There'll be a triangle before you know what's happening. And that's one thing. If we are throwing any kind of shade on the idea, a big upset, it could be monster.
Yeah, bingo. You took the words out of my mouth. No, for real. That is the way in which if Bo Nickal loses this fight, he will have not been careful. I just think he's getting Paul Craig at the right time. Craig's lost 4 of 5, and I think Nickal could keep it on the feet and destroy this guy. So I love Bo Nickal. Number couldn't be big enough. The UFC's brought him up in the right way. I've talked to Chase Hooper about this. I think they've brought up Chase Hooper in the right way. Yeah. Even Sean O'Malley. There's certain guys where they really do it sort of the right way. I think Bo Nickal's getting Craig at the right time. But after this, I think it's time for someone who's not going to make him such a prohibitive favorite.
You kind of segging me nicely to our next topic here on buy or sell because, I remember looking at Bo Nickal, the hype train was immediate. He got one knockout in his first pro MMA fight, and then people were talking about how he should be, they were arguing he shouldn't be main card of the UFC. Then he goes over the Contender Series, beats some people up over there in back-to-back weeks, and then he finds himself on a main card of a pay-per-view in a time where it's incredibly hard to find yourself on a main card numbered pay-per-view event. But Bo Nickal has shined in that spotlight time and time again. But I feel like a little bit we've gotten the hype train delayed a little bit. I don't think, the question is buy or sell. Bo Nickal in his rise is behind schedule. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but Jason, I think you can argue that is the sentiment after how hot he came out the cannon so early in his career.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and I guess I would say buy, and I never want to talk about fighters and health and understand what they're trying to build. You talk about his jiu-jitsu, maybe he wants to build that up or continue to work on his game, but I agree with you, man. I'd like to see some more matchups that are more challenging for him, but he doesn't even have a number by his name yet, right?
Right.
So I get it, but yes, I'm buying it. I'd like to see this more aggressive, but you can be sure it's calculated. They know what they're doing. The UFC, Dana White, every button he presses is usually right. They know what they're doing with Mikey. They knew what they're doing with Callum Walsh. You can be sure they know what they're doing with these UFC stars they're building. So I have to trust the process, even though I agree with your sentiment.
I mean, that's the thing. People were talking about him fighting Hamzat before he had 2 fights in the UFC, and I get the exuberance. We are very much a what have you done lately, and let's talk about the hyperbolic before we talk about maybe what is deserved and merit-based and also grooming-based. You mentioned Bo Nickal is a guy that is growing up in the hardest, stage under the brightest lights in mixed martial arts as a single, pedigreed martial artist, and now as a mixed martial artist. It's a very tall order to ask for someone to grow up in this sort of environment as a mixed martial artist, but damn, he's looked so good doing it, Jens. And if he goes out there and gets like a first-round knockout or something, people are going to be starting to get, Bo Nickal and top 5 matches on their short list of things they want to see.
Well, and it goes back to when BJ Penn first exploded on the stream, the most decorated jiu-jitsu practitioner to ever do it from the U.S., right? The world champion, Moondials. But then he was going out there and he was knocking everybody out.
Right.
And they're like, I remember sitting there going, okay, this guy's so good on the ground, but he's knocking everybody out standing up. And the thing with Bo is I'm almost okay with him wrestling. The thing he said about Hamzat is, oh, I'll wrestle him all day. But he knows MMA wrestling is different. And you get that. But be the wrestler that you are. Don't change. Yes, I would like to see you probably throw a couple of kicks, block a kick, throw a couple of knees, maybe pummel a little bit, but I don't want to see you be a boxer. I don't want to see, don't change. Make the sport have to change you. I'm going to start stopping your takedowns. I'm going to start doing this, and I have to make adjustments. But be the wrestler that you are, and you're that good. And I think that's one of the reasons when people ask, why is he on the card? Because in the wrestling world, he's a monster, and he's an incredible wrestler, and he's done a great job in that sport. And you got to give some credits and some kudos to somebody that's that good, you know what I mean, by all their peers to say he's that good.
If you were in the corner of Bo Nickal, or was a coach behind the scenes, Jens, and you wanted to see some sort of evolution from Bo Saturday night here at 309, what would it be? What
dirty
would
box.
Yeah.
I want to see you dirty box. I want to see you pummeling, hook that shoulder, frame that head, and knees, elbows, ripping here, and when they pop up, level change into a takedown. I want to see you get heavy on the head right here, and just right now, guess what? Now carry me, and everybody will fear you. They will fear you. All the strikers will fear you if you go out there and you just do this and you just go heavy. Now you got to carry me, and now all of a sudden, all that burning, that lactic acid is going to get in that body. They don't know how to be that kind of fatigue, and you see it all the time. You see those guys, a couple of takedowns, a couple of scrambles. Whoa, I wasn't ready for that. And the stand-up changes like that.
Bro.
Get in there and get that going. Take them into deep water and go, this is how I wrestle every day. This is what we do. I live in this zone all the time, and make them feel it quick and watch the panic.
Dude, I love this Jens Pulver energy. We need headsets, guys like you and me and my brother John. We can't have a stagnant mic because we're moving all over the place. Give me all of this, man. Give me all of it. All of it.
I think you're seeing why I put that barrier here, because I'm likely to catch an elbow from Jens Pulver.
Man, my hand, I couldn't help it. You got to level, you level to the left. But see, that's the thing. The punch comes, you slip, and what you did is you loaded. You slip, boom. So you come back quick.
Jens Pulver was one of my favorite fighters to watch during his career, but he's also my favorite fighter to watch fights. I didn't know that was a job, Jens, but you're the greatest to do it.
I love it, too.
I love what I'm doing.
You brought up Rumina Sato. That's a name that not a lot of people are going to know. I implore everyone to go check out the tribute, the highlight video of Rumina Sato, flying triangles and judo all day.
But he was doing this at a time. Now, I got to cut you off because you know this. Remember back in the day, the old school grappling, the big 80cc stuff, everybody would stop and just like, can I jump in? And he would sit there and just submit people at will, and everybody just move away and watch him. Boom, 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 fall. Flying armbar into a knee bar, into an ankle lock, and everybody would just wait their turn to get submitted by Rumina. He was that good, and this is like this is nuts how long ago this was. He was so good at transitioning. He was unbelievable. Flying arm bars. Charles Johnson, you know the name. Yeah. This is where he and I started getting this. He hit him with, like, in 5 seconds, jumped up, boom, flying arm bar. And the guy, it scared him so bad, he yelled and tapped, but then you get that emotion. We're like, no, I didn't do anything, because it just struck how fast it was. No, I didn't tap, but you did. You panicked. It was just quick.
Yeah, I mean, Rumina would go to these grappling events, and like you said, it was almost like a pickup game of basketball.
Just dove in on it. Can I go? They would line up just to go 30 seconds with them get submitted by Rumina. It was unreal.
Yeah, phenomenal stuff, to say the least. And we'll see if Paul Craig can pull off some Rumina Sato stuff and hit something amazing and upset the apple cart and hype train of one Bo Nickal. That is going down Saturday night here at Madison Square Garden. It is UFC 309. This is Extra Rounds. I'm TJ DeSantis. This is Jason Anik. That's Jens Pulver. You are you. Appreciate you joining us. Let's talk a little bit more about a fight that's on the undercard. Eric Anders, Chris Weidman. Weidman, a former UFC champion, one of the greatest to ever do it, and just an all-around good guy. And it's interesting, when he broke his leg a few years ago against Uriah Hall, and the irony is thick when you think about how he beat Anderson Silva in their second meeting. But it's interesting for him to just make the walk still here in this city, get to put on a show in front of hometown friends and family. And I'm not saying that this is his retirement fight, but I am happy, Jason, that Weidman gets the opportunity to do it this advanced in his career.
No question about it. I've gotten to know Chris as a human being. I have so much love for Chris Weidman. I'm really interested in the fight. And Jens, we talked about this, I think, before the lights came on, and I'll be curious to get your thoughts on the fight. But also, too, right, if Chris Weidman can emerge victorious, right, I do believe this will be it for Chris if he can emerge victorious. And so the idea that this guy, after everything he's accomplished in his career, and that leg break, right, the recovery and the rehab for that was not easy. There were multiple setbacks. But if he can close it out with a W in Madison Square Garden, nothing would make me happier. But I'm curious, Jens. Eric Anders is at a very good place in his life right now, it seems. Anders has said, I got 2 more fights after this one. He said he used to mess around with little, recreational drugs here or there. Nothing crazy, but he says he's clipped it all, is healthier than ever. What do you think about the fight itself?
Well, see, that's the thing. No matter what, you're Chris Weidman. You're a world champion. That's attached to your name. So Anders, I get to be the world champion. I don't care how, when, and where they were. Like I said, you ever fight, quote-unquote, Jens Pulver, you're fighting a former world champion. That's what they're hearing, and that's what's making them go out there and make a statement. That's what motivates them. So no matter what, wherever Weidman is in his headspace, for Anders, I'm fighting a former world champion. I don't care what he did his last. I'm fighting a former world champion. I get to put that on my resume that I beat the former UFC world champion. We don't have to talk about, well, what? Nope, that goes on my resume. So that's kind of the motivating factor when you go out there. Again, with Weidman, it sucks when people start talking about, like, is this your last fight? Now, that means is that in his head? Was that in his head the entire camp? Is he happened to read about that? Because people start interviewing you and asking you, is this your last fight? Is this your last fight? It's like, that's like a very polite way of saying, dude, you're old. And we know you're old, and you've lost a step, and you're skipping on one leg. It looks like you're limping. They start telling you all the bad things. What does that do to you? Like, you want to just shut everybody up, and do you go out there and you overhype it, and you go too much? Like, and then you kind of get yourself caught, or can you just find that groove? It is what it is. I've been through everything. I am a world champion. I'm Chris Weidman. That means something, and go out there and fight like that.
There's so many varying opinions out there on how Chris has looked in his last 2 fights. And my opinion, I hate to say it, I don't think he's looked good at all. I don't think he's looked comfortable. I thought,
hesitant, right?
Exactly. And in the Brad Tavares fight, Tavares beat him. I think that was the most significant strikes Chris ever landed, maybe at 75, and none of them felt significant to me. The last fight, I hate to say it, was via eye pokes in a lot of ways, that win over Bruno Silva. So I hate to do this right now, and I know Chris won't see this, but I like Eric Anders in this spot. I think I just haven't seen enough from Chris in these last 2 fights.
And I hope, but here's the thing, not to cut you off, but you feed me, you got me going. So here's the thing I always say about the older fighter. The older fighter, we tend to start watching. And we start watching the fight happen, and we keep looking for that opening. And no, it's not here. No, it's not. And that's why we get that really slow start. When I was a youngster, it's like, I'll just throw 25 punches. 3 of them got to get through. I'm in. Let's go. I'm jumping on. But as we get older, we don't pull that trigger because we sit back, we're like, and we're waiting for that perfect punch. And when it doesn't show up, we just found out we're 15, 16 punches behind. We're in the middle of a clinch, and now we're in trouble. And I don't care. Go back and watch. We all start watching the fight happen and waiting for that one moment because we know what it looks like, and we damn sure know what it feels like. So we just waiting for it, and we never pull the trigger. And before you know, you're 1 round, 2 rounds in, and now you're desperately trying to find your way back.
Talking to Ray Longo this week, he was talking about the mental mindset of Weidman and said that he's fighting freer. Talking to him, obviously, you said it, he's a world champion. He doesn't really have anything to prove, but I do wonder if that sort of free feeling does give way to the pressure because, again, it's Madison Square Garden. It's potentially the final fight. I think you kind of hinted to it, Jason. I think it's probably more likely Weidman's final fight if he has some sort of highlight reel stoppage and he knows to sort of take a step back in that moment and have that moment at MSG. But I do feel like the moment, it's going to weigh on him.
And didn't you say earlier tonight before we came on that you think it's more likely for Weidman to walk after a loss? Or
Could you? If you just walked out and you knocked somebody out in Madison Square Garden with that, I'm back!
See, right. See, that's, I love that.
I'm yelling at Father Time, I'm back! You ain't not yet.
Yes,
I'm breaking, I'm back. It's too hard. As much as we're all going, okay, storybook, this is it. This is the best way to walk out. What? I just knocked him out. I'm back! You know what I mean?
They say you're only as good as your last fight, and if you're pretty damn good in your last fight, then...
But that's the thing, is we're supposed to lose our last fight, because it means we stayed too long, and that's when we're like, all right, yes. I finally had to beat it out of me, but Okay, yes, I'm done.
Well, you know,
because the fighter in you's not going to quit. And you're always trying to prepare yourself.
We know Dominic Cruz, right? Good friend of mine, right?
Yep.
Probably got 1 or 2 more left in him, right? He just slipped out of the rankings, right? But you can be sure he wants to be selective with his final fight, if you will. Having a matchup with Jose Aldo. I know I'm spinning off a different tangent here, but you know what I mean? It really is, you know, you can't always go out on top. And you hear Dana White. He doesn't want Cowboy Cerrone coming back. You know what I mean? So,
but that's the thing. You're not. Here's what I always look at it. Like, you're not supposed to go out on top because we're always pushing the envelope. We're always trying to push things. And at the end of the day, I'm trying to push this thing called Father Time. I'm trying to push him back. Go get away from me. What are you doing? And it's a hard thing for anybody to understand. But there's a reason why this happens to everybody. Can we hold on too long? Because what's too long? Like, we're taught to keep trying and running against the grain and push ourselves. And then it's just finally when everybody's like, okay, I've run out of gas. The car doesn't run anymore. You know what I mean? We don't put the thing away fully souped up, brand new, like, yeah, no, it's perfect. You don't do that. You ride this thing until the wheels fall off, and that's kind of what you're supposed to do in life. Ride it until the wheels come off.
Well, I mean, I think that's the thing about mixed martial arts is to get to this level and to maintain, a status at this level, you have to not only believe in yourself, you have to do so with a level that's just downright delusional. If you're going into a fight where you're the 5-1 or 12-1 underdog, like, you can't look at that. You can't be like, yeah, I'm probably going to lose this fight, because you're for sure going to lose the fight. You might not even make it to fight night. But, I think that's the thing, too, Jens. You say that it always catches up with fighters. This is why, in this space, especially when you've earned the right to be a Hall of Famer, you end up going on a skid of 4 or 5 losses, because no one's going to not afford you the opportunity, if you're one of the bigger moneymakers, to go out there and apply your trade when, maybe it starts to go sideways. But and I'm a firm believer in this. I don't believe that legacies are defined by that 5 or 6 fight skid.
Let me be the man who just got in the Hall of Fame, who did lose his last 6 fights. This happened. I'm like, look, I get this. When I'm always talking on the stream, I go, I get it. Yes, I went out on that losing streak because here's the thing. I'm like anybody else. If I was at bat and I went 0 for 7 one weekend, I'm trying to figure out my stroke. Why am I not hitting this ball? Well, I'm sitting there trying to figure out, and even then there wasn't as many fights. I'm like, okay, why am I not winning? It's still a puzzle, and I'm still trying to play this game. And I'm trying to understand. So I tell everybody, look, focus on the things that I have done. And I can't just focus just on the end. I know that a lot of people are going to remind me, you went on a losing streak at the end. Yes, but I was also at a time, I created this weight class. I was this pioneer. I was winning overseas. I did all these cool things, won world titles, beat people I shouldn't have. You know what I mean? So you got to go back and remember all of it. And that's another thing I think is, everybody's like, you're only as good as your last fight. Yeah, but, I'm also, age is something everybody's got to try to figure out, and it's the conquer of us all, and we all try to battle time. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, and everyone, look at Tony Ferguson, right? What, he won 11 straight, and he keeps getting in there, so it's...
Because he wants to figure out, it's like anybody. I want to figure out what it is, and here's the irony of it. When I look at the majority of the everyday individual, I'm like, but I feel like this, and I'm losing. I don't understand, but I can walk over here to this bar and get mad, and I'll probably lay out a good 8 or 9 of them. I will hit a winning streak. I'll hit a winning streak that will blow your mind, but it's just not happening in that octagon, and it's like, I got to figure out why.
Well, I think that's the hardest part, too, is like they say power's the last thing to go, Jen, so you always have power.
Always a shot.
Right. But also, too, like, who you are as an athlete, and you know that your technique is still good. Your technique never technically goes away as long as your body doesn't downright fail you. But ultimately, like we say, Father Time does take a hold. But if you got power and you got technique, you got a fighting chance.
And 100%. As we talk about Father Time, that's why the main event to me is so hard to visualize, because I feel like I haven't seen these guys compete in years, since like the pandemic, it feels like.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's the thing. You want to look at John Jones' entire career. I mean, how many fights did we legitimately not get from John Jones? You know what I mean? And that's the thing. Anytime he wants to fight, I mean, people are going to want to see him fight long after he's decided he doesn't want to fight. And we're always going to talk about prime John Jones, or maybe even not prime John Jones, still being better or able to get things done on any given night, unlike any other athlete has before. So let's talk about Jones in the retrospective sense for a moment. Do you have a favorite John Jones moment, Jens Paul?
I don't necessarily say I have a moment as much as I have a favorite when he's the spinning back elbows. And when he just was so good, the way that he could style that off the fence and how good he was with those elbows and his striking. And he could just hear it push and then boom, he could just rip them off so quick. The way that he could just keep you at bay with his range. And then when you try to explode into him, boom, and he just could punish you. Now all of a sudden I'm a wrestler. But he's very good at being a well-rounded MMA fighter. You don't know how good his wrestling is because he keeps you at bay and he beats you up with range until you get mad. You try to come in, he's like, oh yeah, no, I'm actually just disgusting at this too. You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, I'm gonna try to get past his range and get in there and see how he wrestles. Oh, he's that good there too? Oh, this sucks, you know what I mean? And he's always been in good shape, but he's just such a sniper. But the way that he plays that fence and he'll like push on the face and he knows they're only going one direction when they do, boom, boof, he's got an elbow waiting for you.
Yeah, you mentioned those spinning back elbows. I had the task of doing play-by-play for his UFC debut on a T-Mobile Sidekick. You know, because this is before Facebook prelims, this is before UFC Fight Pass was a thing, and he was taking on Andre Gusmão, who was a former champion in the IFL, prominent promotion, 15 years ago. And Gusmão was the favorite. He was a Renzo Gracie prodigy. A lot of people thought that he was going to be able to beat John Jones because people didn't know who John Jones was. When he started doing those spinning elbows against Andre Gusmão, I'm writing into my phone going, I hope my eyes aren't deceiving me because I might be wrong, and because I've never seen a spinning back elbow even attempted, let alone landed.
I know how horrifying those are when they land. I mean, that is scary. It's bad enough to know you have someone, not to cut you off, that has power, and if they hit you, clean, you're in trouble. But he's spinning these things, and it's like, okay, this has just changed my whole world, because if one of these go outside, I no longer see it because I'm looking at you and just rips you. I mean, there's no, it's over. It's like, this is another threat I do not want to have to deal with.
You know, we talk so much, and you talk about a singular moment, but my brother and I talk a lot about professional athletes versus fighters. And there are a lot of these fighters that are pro athletes, in my opinion, and a lot that are fighters. A lot of them that I think are pro athletes could go play in another sport. John Jones is most certainly that. For me, John Jones's legacy, it's not about a singular moment. It's just about the body of work. And he's a special human as well. Ever hear the guy sing, right? He's a supremely gifted human being. And when he talks about the fights versus Gustafsson, or he talks about Reyes, and he talks about those 25-minute battles, that's what it's about to him. And listening to him reflect on his own legacy and sort of seeing him enter his own mind, I think he's a very complicated but a very brilliant guy, and I very much hope his legacy remains intact, right? I find that I root a lot for these guys' legacies, whether it's even a guy like Max Holloway. A lot of people didn't want to see him lose, a lot of fight fans, right? I've rooted for Israel Adesanya and his greatness, right? So for me, John Jones, there's just so much there, and I really hope it ends in the right way.
You know, the thing that's interesting about Jones over the course of his career is he's a tale of two different sort of stories, in the sense that, a lot of people like to cheer against John. A lot of people like to boo him, probably because he's so great, unless he's fighting Daniel Cormier. And then everyone cheers John Jones, and for whatever reason, Daniel Cormier, one of the greatest human beings to ever fight in mixed martial arts, gets booed for whatever reason. I don't know. Like, if you ask me who I want to watch my kid for 20 minutes, I'm going DC every day of the week. I'm not going to pick John Jones. That said, the fans, they embrace John in a way that they never ever did, in any other fight except standing across against one.
Stipe now? You're talking shit about John Jones the father? What's going on? You don't want to leave John Jones?
But
I think that's one of the things. He caught so much grief. I think he's caught so much grief on other things in his life. You know what I mean? And stuff like that. So that's what makes it hard. That he just kind of... It's like, I gotta love him for his fighting, because damn, he just does some dumb things outside. But I'm saying, but it makes you really love him. But as far as, I don't know why DC, I have this shirt that I try to get my son to wear, and it says, if everybody loves you, you're not winning enough. And he's like, I'm not wearing it. I go, dude, I'm telling you. He goes, no way. Because he doesn't. He goes, no. I go, son, I'm telling you, it's an awesome shirt. And he's like, I'm not wearing it. I'm going, okay, but if everybody loves you, you're not winning enough.
I love it. And I'll say that one of the only things Dana White said to my brother when he hired him many, many years ago, he said, just get ready for the hate. And, it came, less of it nowadays than there was back in the day, but we were ready for it. Thanks, boss.
Yep, especially when you fire back every now and then. But I think that's just kind of the one thing with Bones, is he gets that sympathetic side because he's just some dumb things on the outside. It's like, he's human, but, man, he can fight, and boy, we love him. So I don't know, maybe that could be something. But, because DC, he's flawless. But that might be the problem. you flawless. I can't like you. You're too clean, you know, or something. I don't know.
Yeah, man, but getting back to something that I think is intriguing about John is the sense that, like, things could have gone so bad for him so many different times, but he still comes out the other side better for it. And, you know, this is a hard sport where, you know, when you, I said earlier, you're only as good as your last fight. When you are great, like John Jones, God, the world loves you. You know, and there's a lot of reasons to never, you know, push yourself harder when you've already done the things that he's done. And you know, I think that just him getting to this point, you know, you can say what you want about maybe some of his latter performances at light heavyweight. I think it's ultra impressive that he's been able to conquer those mountains and still have a passion and a fire for, you know, getting up for a fight like this. I mean, John Jones is a guy that came in and had the world, you know, by the balls, really, in MMA. You know, the youngest UFC champion. A lot of people don't know what it's like to feel that success.
Now, when you say youngest world champion, say the age. Say the age. I know what it is. How old?
Was it 22?
22, and you're the baddest man on the planet.
23?
I don't know.
Was it 22, 23,
23, but somewhere
20, we'll go 23.
He couldn't legally
Either
rent
way,
a car.
Either way, 23. Yeah, you're 23 years old, and you're the baddest man on the planet. Like, in the world where everybody wants to be kind of a tough kid and everything like that, that's not in the sport game, something like, you're the baddest man on the planet. The world wants to see you win, and the other part of the world wants to see you lose. But it's just, that's a lot of pressure for a young kid to be out there like that. And everybody, no matter what their age is gunning for you. You're at the top of the mountain, I want that. And at 23 years old, oh, wait, I was the world champion at 23 years old. I know what it feels like. It's very hard. It's tough.
But it also shapes you, right? Yeah. We don't, and I know you're a big celebrity, Jens, but we don't know what the celebrity life is like John Jones, right? And what it's like to sort of live that life. You know, it became a lot more complicated than being a fighter. But I will say, and I'm paraphrasing, Jones had some comments saying about, it's amazing how many people want to hate me when they don't know me. And it's a very interesting statement, because you can be sure my brothers told me every time I'm one-on-one talking to John Jones, his cell phone's in his pocket, he's giving me his undivided attention, and he's completely locked in. He loves every moment. So a lot of good in that, man. I'll be rooting for him tomorrow night.
I love him to death.
Yeah, it is a phenomenal main event. It is headed your way tomorrow night, Madison Square Garden, UFC 309. Again, the greatest of all time to ever do it, John Jones, most talented man to ever step foot in the octagon, taking on the greatest heavyweight to ever do it, statistically speaking. And yeah, I hate saying statistically speaking because it sounds like he's not a terrifying individual. Stipe Miocic, I don't care if it's at 55 years old, 45 years old, 105 years old, he's a terrifying individual. And if he lands on the button, it might be curtains. So
yeah, well, and you know, it's yeah, we got some fans distracting me over there.
They got him distracted. I had to get out of the. That was awesome.
I don't have peripheral vision. I can't move my eyes left or right, so I have no idea what you're talking about. So just if anything comes flying, projectiles, help me out, all right?
So you've asked us a lot of questions.
Yes.
Right? What are your expectations of Stipe Miocic? Is he a live dog from your standpoint?
No, absolutely not. I think that he's going up against a guy who is better on paper everywhere. I think, yeah, he has power, and again, that's the only X factor for me is I don't know what John Jones looks like when he gets hit by a true, honest-to-goodness heavyweight, and Stipe Miocic is that. But I will say that 99 out of 100 times, I think John Jones wins.
So, and I'm going to ask you this, Jens, right? So obviously there's a lot of crossover in eras, right? If we're talking basketball, we talk LeBron James, Michael Jordan, whatever. Didn't play in this, you know, both all-time greats. We can even have a conversation right now. Alex Volkanovski, Max, the greatest featherweight. There's so many. I don't love these greatest of all-time conversations. Just not my favorite. But Stipe, everyone talks about the greatest heavyweight of all time. Definitely the most accomplished, right? He's won it 4 times or won it, defended it 3 times. Most accomplished, yes. But for with your 2 eyes, which I love, who is the best heavyweight that you ever saw make the walk? Not including John Jones, because not really heavyweight.
Stipe. Well, and DC because of the size, Randy Couture because of his size and going up and fighting at the heavyweight, stuff like that. Cain Velasquez, which I love and appreciate. That kid was a savage, and he was another beast. See, we started saying names. There was other guys out there. Cain was scary, and what he did to Brock Lesnar to this day was still mind-blowing. He had Brock absolutely terrified in every aspect of the game. I mean, horrified, running from him. Cain is a hell of an individual. He's an incredible person. We all know why, but he's an amazing person, you know. But I think with Stipe and where he's at right now, this is a good opportunity for him and hopefully he finds in there. This is historic for him. This isn't a moment that he could go out there and just, man, I shook up the world. I just beat the greatest of all time, and then I did it in a fashion up to him. Like I said, I could see the heavy hands, the failed takedowns where he just can't take you down. Now he's right in front of you. Piston hands, hitting that liver, the things that he did when he caused the panic on DC and stuff like that, and he put it together, making adjustments in the middle of the fight, and those kind of things, like, oh, he's not moving, now I got to just get in there and slug it out with him, and that's Stipe. That's the man that jumps into a fire right now and saves lives. Like, do you really want to go toe-to-toe with that guy? And he's got this motivation. Like, hopefully, like I said, put everything else aside, that Stipe, man, the dog in Stipe, who he is, go out there and show everybody, man, I'm tired of this. He ain't me. He's not a heavy. I'm going to bust him up.
I think the case you've laid out, really is the sort of best case if that is to come to fruition. I really do think it is. Whether or not it happens remains to be seen.
Yeah, getting on the Stipe tip for a brief moment, we say statistically speaking, but again, it comes down to facts, and like he did it. He did it. This is a division where people couldn't hold on to that belt for 2 title defenses. They just couldn't do it. And, we're talking about, you mentioned Velasquez. Cain, to me, had everything that a fighter needed to have to be one of the greatest, one of the best. And we saw that go awry very quickly, which, again, goes back to my point about John just coming out the other side time and time again, undeterred and flawless, outside of a DQ loss. You can get DQ'd and that undefeated record can go by the wayside very quickly in MMA. That's the only thing that's ever happened wrong, really, when you look at results for John Jones. And maybe he got a couple of gift decisions, maybe. But
by the way, if I may say real quick, now the rules, because I get asked this question all the time. Well, now that the rules changed, what do you do about Bone Jones? Doesn't matter. He did it when it wasn't allowed, so it still counts. Like, do we take it off?
Well,
no, you don't take it off.
Yeah.
We should have never had the rule in the first place, maybe. But, now you got all that freedom. Well, if that was the case, so.
Well, the worst part is the fight was over when he's throwing the 12-6 elbows. Matt Hamill's already done, but whatever. But getting back to the point, who was another candidate that could be there? There just aren't there. I think there's guys that have potential, and it didn't go right. I think Minotauro Nogueira is one of the greatest heavyweights to ever do it, but he didn't do it in this time. He didn't do it against, elite-level athletes, because that's the other thing, too, you mentioned, Jason. John Jones was going to be a professional athlete in one sport or another, I believe, and he chose MMA. And you look at his brothers. Prominent NFL players. Yeah. Those guys they're just cut different from a different cloth. And looking at just not John by himself, but there are other guys that were supreme athletes that Randy Couture didn't have to take on. Those guys didn't have those. I mean, mixed martial arts was a niche sport. It wasn't your first sort of, I'm going to go do this when I have elite level athleticism, and guys that ended up in the NFL.
For that money, I'm going to play arena football long before I'm going to play this sport and make no money. Like, I'm not doing this until, one day, then it was like, oh, wait, you can make money in this, and then the heavyweights came a flying, I mean,
to put that into perspective, I haven't told you this. I've told Jens this before, but Jens Pulver, UFC lightweight champion, has a bit of a business debacle go on. He leaves the UFC. I see him fight on a racquetball court in Fridley, Minnesota in the summer of 2002 against a guy named Rob Emerson, who was long before he got to the UFC. That was the first ever MMA show I went to.
Spikers volleyball court. It was so hot in there. I had to go, this is no lie, I was so hot, I had to go sit in the car with the AC on for about 15, 20 minutes just to calm down. It was unbelievable hot in there. And we got out there. Actually, me and Emerson were just talking about this. It was a slip and slide. But whatever the canvas was, we were just sliding.
It's a shower curtain.
Yeah, it was horrible. Horrible.
Greatest lightweight in the world at the time. Nobody's beating this man. And I see him in Fridley, Minnesota. So
was it a bad night for Emerson or what?
No, it was a good night for him. I won, but it was a good night for him because he was still scrapping. And he's like, dude, I went toe-to-toe with the best guy in the world, and and it was a fun fight.
Tough loss, Emerson.
He was like 19 years old.
And he was a kid and everything else. And I was not expecting it. I had to really control him. And it was just a wild fight. He's like, hey, we can run it back bare knuckle. I'm going, hey, this kid is done. I'm done with this. I love you, Emerson, but I'm done with this.
Huh?
Tell you what, this building is buzzing. I know we got a lot of guys. I think Diego Lopez creeping around. We got Ige creeping around. Those guys fought not too long ago. What we got going on?
Yeah, it's cool. You start seeing this crowd running around. We're jumping in here, and Again, I like this Legends. This is a heck of a place. It was crazy to get in here. That's the one thing about being down here in New York. I can't. Oh, a cab ride takes you an hour and a half to go a mile. It's something. I think.
You gotta walk, baby.
Oh, you gotta walk the weather. It's perfect. You gotta do this, right?
It's beautiful. Beautiful.
I love this city. Love this city.
I do too, man. And I'm from Boston originally, and we grew up with Boston sports. We hated New York because we hated the sports teams.
Yeah.
And every time I come here, I'm like, I can't get enough of this city.
I love to go up to Chicago. It's worth driving 2 hours to spend a day in Chicago. But something around here, man, it's just something. It's pretty cool, man. I love it in here.
I hear you.
I feel like New York City's a theme park. I mean, maybe it's because I can buy a hot dog at every corner, but it feels like a theme park, you know? So.
I love it.
And of course, the Belly of the Beast, it's Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous arena, your destination for UFC 309. If you are unable to make it and you are local, come to Legend Sports Bar, hang out with Jens Pulver, Chase Hooper, which, by the way, we let Chase go, and we never saw him again. I mean,
we know he's not drinking at the bar because we know he would get carded, first of all, but he has no time for that alcohol stuff. He's got to fight December 7th against Clay Guida. I mean, how Chase Hooper, Clay Guida. How old is Clay Guida?
I mean, old school meets new school, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully to a point, because that's the one thing is Chase is an absolute nightmare on the ground. He's just an absolute nightmare. And I know there was a time Guida could out-wrestle the rest of them. That's one thing I loved about Guida. Workhorse. Work. Scramble. And he always made a great fight because it was just hard to keep up with him. Frankie Edgar had a lot of that. A lot of movement, keeping you working, even though he was a smaller 155-pounder, being in great shape. And this is one of those things, does he still have it? Unfortunately, that's a hard thing to do as you get older. You know, and I think that's going to be the thing we'd have to run into. But Chase, you know, this kid is really growing into just his skin. He's something. Oh, man, he is like, so good.
For those of us that have gotten to know him over the years, Chase, like I'm a broken record saying this, but the boy has become a man. Physically, he's different. I think Clay Guida's in big trouble.
I don't know what's going on here right now, but I just heard of Vuvuzela, like it's the 2010 World Cup in South Africa.
I love it.
It's a crazy atmosphere here. Come down here if you can, and you're in the area taking the fights tomorrow. Jens Pulver. I don't even know where to go from here.
They were going nuts for Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns here. Where's Dorino? Come up here and give us some love. There's a lot of places we could go, but I'm going to go here with you real quick. Eric Anders, Chris Weidman. Who do you like in the fight?
Man, I'm a sucker for destiny. And I think it's Chris Weidman's destiny to go out there and perform and maybe pull out an unlikely win. I think it's a close line. I think it's almost even money on Weidman. I have to look at that. But I do feel like Weidman's going to get something done. Win, lose, or draw, I just hope it's a night that he can feel proud of and enjoy. And Ray Longer could have that moment, too, with Weidman inside the garden.
So, do you know if Dana said anything yet about UFC 310? I don't know if someone could check that, but he did say he was going to announce who that new main event is. As we know, Bilal Muhammad unable to compete. I've heard rumblings. Actually, no, I shouldn't even say I've heard rumblings because they're not based on anything. So I'll just leave that alone. It's only things on Twitter. But the idea of an interim belt, right? And I know Ian Gary's supposed to face Joaquin Buckley, right? But the idea that Ian Gary would face Shavkat Rakhmonov, for me, right? And I know Bilal Muhammad's a close friend of mine, but does that make a ton of sense? I mean,
here's my thing about interim belts. Like,
Please don't have it.
I understand that it cheapens the title. I mean, Tom Aspinall sitting in the city, like, what do I got to do to get the respect that I deserve? I've been active. I'm the heavyweight champion. I get that. But for me, an interim belt just solidifies a number one contender in a sport where oftentimes a number one contender or title eliminator ends up not being that. When you have an interim belt wrapped around your waist, at least it's a mandated, hey, you're going to get the next fight. Unless you're Colby Covington, and then sometimes it's not that way. So.
But the thing is, then when you see them having to defend an interim title, and then it gets out of hand, it gets wild, like what you were just saying.
An interim belt should never be defended, right? But it's really interesting, right? You have different sides of it. Justin Gaethje will take his interim belt and put it on the floor. Dustin Poirier will revere his, and I see both sides of it, right? Dustin Poirier has accomplished great things, and I love the fact that he, cares about that interim belt where Gaethje wants the undisputed. I get it.
Yeah, you think that belt of Gaethje's is not displayed somewhere in his house, though? I mean, he throws it on the floor because it's a statement, but he's proud of it. You win a UFC belt, whether it's interim or otherwise, it's a huge accomplishment.
As somebody who's retired, you'll go gather them all up later, no matter how you got them. Like, look at these, and all the kids run around. Look at these belts. Is this real? Well, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I mean, you fought at a time where you just kept getting belts after belts after belts. It doesn't happen that way anymore.
Nah, well,
right.
They get little rubies now, but that's all. I'd take one of them too. But yeah, his belts, you know, you work your way up to 4 belts and stuff like that. It's worth, you know, the family all gets one. He passes them out. There's one in the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? Because that was the thing is I'm the UFC's, well, I'm Dana White Lorenzo's, I'm Zupa's first world champion.
Yeah.
Because Tito was already the champion, and he just came in and kept fighting. I'm their first world champion. That's why that one belt is in the Hall of Fame. That's their first ever world championship belt. It was me and Cal Uno for the first ever 155-pound division. I'm their first world champion.
All right.
Crazy.
Not at all. About to be 50 years old.
So here's the thing. I can't adequately describe the atmosphere of this building to people at home that are watching. You know, we had a line out the block. You mentioned Gilbert Burns is here. Diego Lopez, Dan Ige. Like, these guys are signing. I mean, like, they're not going to make it over here because we would have an angry mob of people that want to get their UFC meet and greet in.
You're not going to be able to get them to be quiet enough yelling at them. Luckily, you know, so that's kind of a good thing. But it is, the atmosphere is pretty damn cool. I like it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about our watch along tomorrow, and I've got to figure out this board so I can stop putting my hand here and turning this up and down all because it's going to get so loud in here.
DJ Magic Mixer the whole time. There's nothing you can do about it. I got this over here. If we bring this one in, I mean, we should have him here. But if we can get him over, you know what I mean. But you guys, you'll have me, and of course DJ will keep me under control. But I think the biggest thing is we just have to slide along. And I do want people, if you are coming in and you have an opinion, I may try to grab one or two and have you come sit down and watch a fight with me. I'm always up for it. I love the fans. I love the people that come in the chat and stuff like that. So if you come down personally, and as long as you keep the cuss words to a minimum, you know what I mean, and keep it however we got to keep it.
That's good for me to know. That's good for me to know.
No, those are good cuss words. It's just how you cuss.
I know, I get it.
That depends on who you are.
See, you fire me up, so sometimes when I'm fired up, exactly. Exactly. But no, watch along. They got to give you a laptop, right? So you can keep up with the chat.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have that for you. We got you.
What I love about Fight Pass, the one thing that they've done, a lot of you that used to be seeing at home, is I love that we're trying to do more of this. I'd love to do more of this on the road. This is just too much fun to just be in the atmosphere and be around everybody. This is one of the things that I've always missed when I was done fighting is this. People giving me their time and just hanging out and taking the time to ask for a picture. It's the greatest thing in the world to be in the vibe and in the moment. I love it.
I love it. When I asked Jens on one of our last watch-alongs publicly, I was like, you're going to be in New York? You would have thought that I asked Jens Pulver about his pregnant wife, right? Yeah. Right? It was a whoa, shh. No. And then we found out it was okay. Jens going to be in New York. He's in. Let's go. But come see him tomorrow night. Him and Chase be going at it.
Yeah. You know, I think this is a one-of-a-kind sort of experience as well. Just you mentioned getting fans on to hang out for a fight. Like, what other sport do you get to sit down and essentially call a fight with a Hall of Famer? It's not happening. You know, the UFC is an experience unlike any other, and I think that's what made this sport so great. Long before it got to this level, and the fight to get into Madison Square Garden, decades long. But MMA and the UFC in particular, Jens, has been this sport that reaches through the television and grabs people and allows you to hang out not only with the stars of yesteryear, but you get to go and hang out and meet and shake hands with the guys like we have in this building. And again, they were supposed to come on the air tonight with us. They're going to go hang out with the fans because that's what they do. It's a fan-forward sport.
I love that you just said that, and I've seen my brother in a lot of opportunities, right, seek fans out, right, where we'll be at an event and he'll be like, I'm going to go talk to all these fans right now, and like that really is what it's about. Your point is very well taken. And I've noticed, right, is it Musumeci? Musumeci, is that it?
Yeah.
All right. But you see, right, martial artists to me, and I can say it because I am not a martial artist, to a fault, 99 out of 100 martial artists that I meet are such unique individuals that have so much to offer, right? So it's genuine over there. Gilbert Burns, one of the best people I've ever met in my life, right? You can be sure he's giving the fans his genuine time, as are everyone over there. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of fans, there's some that want to meet Jens Pulver, so I think we're going to let you go and go.
You're kicking me off too, all right? I love it. I love it. Yeah. Okay, well, hey. As always, thank you both. I love and appreciate you, man.
Yes,
I appreciate you always. tomorrow we'll be back. I don't know. I think because we're live, we won't be starting first fight. We'll probably
correct
1 or 2 fights before the main card starts, something like that. So you won't have me the entire time as much as I would do that. But when we do get on, we'll have guests. I'm excited, man. I love this. I can't believe we're live. It's gonna be a lot of fun. You know, I love and appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for your time. I'll see y'all later on.
Pulverize. Let's go.
There he is, little evil Jens Pulver doing the watch along again tomorrow here in New York City. Come and hang out. Legend Sports Bar is where it's at if you can't be in the Garden yourself. Where are you going to be? I mean, I know you're going to have that sweet seat on the floor, but maybe you come over for a prelim, maybe one?
Maybe I will do that.
Yeah.
Perhaps not. I like to just carry my brother's old Celtics backpack and just sort of snuggle myself. It's going to be tight, though. Going to be a lot going on the floor tomorrow night. Could be some interesting appearances, some celebrity appearances, perhaps.
Yes.
I mean, not breaking any news, but
no.
You know, probably expecting some
business
Secret Service,
yeah,
etc. Right?
I think so. Yeah. But why not?
Yeah, exactly. Where are you going to be? You're going to be here running the board.
Here, yeah.
So why don't you creep your face on the screen tomorrow night a little bit, right?
I mean,
you sometimes hide in that producer seat a little bit.
I just wanted to get into radio, and then radio turned into this, and then I don't know. You know, I worry about my complexion and my stupid face.
But this guy, so I called TJ soft on the air last week, right?
Right.
You just laughed.
Yeah.
I just made it up. And then you called me a casual last week, right?
Yeah.
Which I was in terms of the jiu-jitsu. But then tonight you're talking about casuals for like 5 whole minutes.
Yeah.
And then you skip over me talking to these guys and then coming back I knew you were coming back to me calling me a casual.
The fantasy corner at PGF last week was on the other side of the room, so it was easy for me to do. You're sitting right next to me.
I just don't like being called like a fantasy nerd. Like you're not throwing to me over in the nerd corner. I'm next to my guy Egghead, who's happy to be a nerd.
Yeah. In closing, go check out PGF if you haven't. It's everything you love about sports plus jiu-jitsu, and jiu-jitsu is coming up in the world. I want to thank our guest, Mikey Musumeci, for coming on the air and getting you ready for the FPI 9. If you don't know about it, again, might as well tell you about it. Mikey is signed with the UFC Fight Pass Invitational. It's going to be going down December 5th in Las Vegas. He takes on Felipe Machado. Please tune in because the Jiu-Jitsu revolution continues, and its home is right here on UFC Fight Pass. I'm going to let you go do your thing. I'm going to shut things down, and you know what? We might as well go out with that great hit song that I wrote for you back during International Fight Week.
My God.
Yeah. So if you don't know, this is Jason Anik, John's twin, but everyone calls him John. Despite that full head of hair, I wrote a song about it. We made AI rap it. And, yeah, we'll go out to that. So thanks for tuning in. It's been Extra Rounds here, courtesy of DraftKings Sportsbook. We'll see you tomorrow for 309.
You think I'm John? I'm actually Jay. They always crack a smile and say no way. Gotta be real, you know I wouldn't play. It's cool, I get it. We're twins, okay? I got a different style, I spit a different flow. When I rock a mic, it's for my own show. I host it with Bilal, and it's kinda like a game. I'm Jason Anik, remember my name. John's in the spotlight, doing his thing. But I got my own crown, I'm a different king. People always asking, ain't you John, bro? I just laugh it off and say it ain't so.